I'm sure. Well, good morning and welcome to our continued study of the Chronological Bible. We are still in Epoch 3. We are now, though, in the book of Joshua. Today, we'll start in the 7th chapter, which is on page 241, down at the bottom right-hand corner. And this is all about, we're going to get into all these. I told you last time, if you've looked ahead, you're going to see all of these battles, battle after battle. And I don't know that it's important that we go through every battle for what we're trying to do here. I don't think that's important. However, this one is sort of the Battle of Jericho is the first battle. Mm-hmm. Now, we're going to move to the second problem in this series, and that is Achan's sin, which is chapter 7. Now, this was significant, and we'll get to why, but the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to these devoted things. What are devoted things?
The idols.
That's correct. Not of Israel,
nope,
but of the countries in which they were conquering.
Right.
That God said he would go before them and make sure that they won, and not only won, but won handily. So that's sort of the situation here. But here again, how many times since we started this class have the Israelites failed to keep God's covenant and have chosen to honor a false idol? Even though one of the 10 Commandments is, very good, excellent, all of you, excellent, yeah. Very well done. And so, it is no surprise to me, this is where you all get off the hook, and me, it's where I get off the hook. It is no surprise to me, and for you and for I, to be those people who follow false idols from time to time. What are our false idols? Money, property,
food.
Now you've gone from preaching to meddling. I'll call on you when I have something for you to say. Remember that.
Yes,
no, that's
yes,
you jump right in there. No, I'm happy for you to jump right in there.
Automobiles.
Material things.
Yeah,
material things. That's right. Better jobs.
Yeah.
More pay. More land. More everything. Because, and why do those things become idols? Let's take this one little more step further. Why do those things become idols? And we're not all this, I guess, most of us are guilty of this. Because, well, you tell me, why do
you're less devoted to God when you...
That's an excellent idea, and that is the cause of what I'm asking. That's the
result.
The result of what I'm asking. Yes.
Because it signifies power and prestige.
That's right.
Ego.
That's right. You got it.
Yeah.
Ego.
Yeah.
It is.
Pride.
That's right. That's right. You're right, Betty. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So when we search out power and prestige, as you said, then here comes George over here to say that distracts us from the worship of God. How many times have we said, I'd like to come to church to worship God, however, I've got to go do X.
Golf.
Or work.
Golf.
Yeah.
Or work. And of course, you see the slide of America.
Yeah.
I can't worry about the world. That's left up to the GAFCON people. Sorry, I'll try to get over that by the time the Archdeacon comes. He's a GAFCON guy. But in America, in our lifetimes now, I'll be 69 in June, in our lifetimes, how have we seen the slide of America away from God and into other idols in the workplace?
Blue laws.
Mm-hmm.
Blue laws. You remember we would grow up with the blue laws?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Gone.
Gone.
Gone. Also,
Yeah.
how many times will a boss ask you to come in on a Saturday or a Sunday? We used to work Monday through Friday, 8 to
Period.
5 or 9 to whatever it was. My mother worked at the bank, 8 to 7 to 3. I guess she was there at 7. I don't know. But I was not there for that. But 8 to 3. And she was off at 3 because she had her standing hair appointment at 3:30 every Thursday or something. So I know she was off. But my point is, and then look at what happens in the schools. And I know I tend to get off this process here, but just stick with me a little bit. Look what's happened to our kids. How many of you have had grandkids who play soccer or t-ball or whatever
Oh, yeah.
on the Sundays?
Um,
Not enough just for Saturdays. I get Saturdays. That's a day of rest. Your children playing those games. That I can make that case. Having not had any children, but I can make that case. However, they play on Sundays. You go to Dallas, Texas,
Right.
or Houston, Texas, or Austin, Texas, and you will see those fields out there that they packed with kids and parents all day long. And you say to them, well, why weren't you in church? Well, my kid had to play volleyball. Now, what was the solution to that? Catholic Church had the first solution. What was
Oh, they do Saturday night.
it? Mass.
mhm.
That was the first
Right.
solution. Actually, that was not the first solution. What was the first? So let me go back because this is something that'll touch us all. Remember when they started 9 o'clock services?
Yes.
Why did they start 9 o'clock services?
So you could be done early.
Yeah.
Yes, to do what?
Oh, TV.
You got it.
What'd you
Takes
say?
a man to answer that one.
What'd you
Yeah.
say?
Watch the football. Watch the
I
Cowboys.
said TV. Yeah. that's
Whatever.
exactly
Watch the
right.
Cowboys on TV. Or the Houston for the four people that watch the Houston Texans. Well, I lived there, so I can say that. But the point is, I used to say to my ministers, and I would say it to you if you came to me, why would you need a 9 o'clock service when your 11 o'clock is not full?
Right.
Now, I don't care which time you pick, right?
Right.
You can have a 9 o'clock, a 10 o'clock, a 9:30, a 10:30, 11. At Holy Faith, we had an 11:30 service.
We had
Well,
an 8
It was the
o'clock.
latest in New Mexico.
Oh.
We had an 8 o'clock so everybody could go to breakfast.
Yeah.
We had
Yeah.
a 7:30, then we had a 9, then we had 11:30. And the point was there, it left time for the rector to have his Sunday school class between that 9 and that
Gotcha.
11:30. So it caught people going and coming, you know. But think about it. I don't care what you pick, but pick it because the first service is full before you overflow to another one. Religion, worship of God should not be a matter of what? Convenience.
Yeah.
Hello on TV? Convenience. No, really now, we're laughing. But Deacon, you know I'm right.
Right.
Some of those big churches, they make it, not always big churches. I know of small churches have 2 services. They do it as a matter of convenience. People want to go to, another thing in Texas they want to do is go to the what? Lake.
Oh, yeah.
Haven't you known the people who go to the lake?
In the
So,
summer.
yes, sir.
I had an opportunity to go to the Methodist church because I wanted to meet a lady that had come out to the boys' camp out to help with our Bible study out there.
Yes, sir.
And she had never been to her younger generation service.
Contemporary
So we
service.
went together.
Did you?
And when we came out of there, we said we didn't feel like we went to church.
No. Yeah.
Because it's all bells and whistles and
Yeah.
Music.
fun. And
Music.
Well, and that's been a more recent development of having one service for one group of people and another
Right.
at Highland Park Methodist in Dallas. 13 services over the weekend when I was there. Of course, it was a huge Methodist church, biggest population church. But my point is, Do you see all these things that are, if you say our church is full, we need to have another service so more people can come worship God, then have the service. But if not, it's a matter of convenience. Now, you may think, well, he's a little strict. He's a little strict. Now, remember here, when I had this early service for the 1928 prayer book situation. You remember that? Remember that, John? Remember that? And I also remember when you came to my office and said, no more. We don't want to do it. Remember that?
I don't remember what.
You came to my office, met with me and the senior Warden Brooks, and said, we'd like to not do this. And remember, the people sent you. Remember that? Anyway,
Not do the 8 o'clock service.
I do it after 2 times.
Yeah.
And why did they do it?
Cancel
Why did they cancel it?
Cancel the coffee hour.
That's right. And what do I call it?
That's right.
They
What do
didn't
I
have
call
their,
it?
they missed
Oh,
their,
that's right.
they missed their fellowship time together.
Now, I'm not going down that road to be critical. I'm saying that in all churches of all denominations of all kinds, in many different ways, we even let our idol, our love of devoted things is what it's called, devoted things, move us away from our, as George said so succinctly, our worship of God, worship of God. Why am I making such a big deal of this? Because while it's not a problem here, if God were to bless us to grow, we would have to keep a sharp eye on that. Not to let those things move us. And that is why sometimes I will complain and say, we've got to do this or that or the other. I know it'll interfere with your happy hour. You'll hear me kind of take a little shot at you. But that's why. This is why I take the shot. Not because I care. I don't care if you meet for 2 hours. But I want to be sure we put the First Baptist in Wichita Falls once had a saying. And they did billboards and signs. I thought it was brilliant. First things first. They're good at that. You know, the Baptists are really good at that. You know, let go, let God. They have a whole series of 4-word things, you know. First things first. Of course, they were First Baptist Church, so first things first.
I think what you're talking about right now is you say it every Sunday before the offertory, lay out up for yourselves treasures on earth and so on.
Moth and rust doth corrupt.
Right.
But rather lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and thieves do not break. And that's why I say it. I've got a book, you know, with about 20 of them in there, as in your prayer book. But I choose that one all the time because an older priest taught me that early on in the Episcopal Church. And I say it because it's a reminder. Just what you're talking about, Tom. It's a reminder.
The treasures you're talking about when you say that is these idols.
That's right. The treasure is not the cash. The treasure is the heavenly treasure, what we're called to do.
Salvation.
And putting God first and worshiping Him first. So I'm saying, I made a heavy dose of this today, and especially for those people who might be watching, to say that was the start of this Achan's sin. This was a big sin now we're moving into, and this is how it started. See? But the Israelites were unfaithful in regard to the devoted things. Achan, son of Carmi, the son of Zimri, we got to fix this. The son of Zerah of the tribe of Judah took some of them. They not only were doing that, they had what? What sin did they have? Greed. They took them. And so the Lord's anger burned against Israel. Now, listen to that phrase. The Lord's anger burned. This is the only place you really hear that. Burned against anger. You won't hear that repeated. Burned against Israel. Now Joshua sent men from Jericho to all which is to Ai, which is near Beth Aven to the east of Bethel, and told him, "Go and spy out the region." So the men went up and spied at Ai. When they returned to Joshua, they said, not all the army will have to go up against Ai, and 2,000 or 3,000 men to take it. And do not worry the whole army, for only a few people live up there. So he said 3,000 people, and what happened? They got their tails whipped.
Yeah.
And I mean, not easy. They got massacred.
Yep.
It says they killed 36 of them. They chased the Israelites from the city gate as far as the stone quarries and struck them down on the slopes. At this, the hearts of the people did what? Israel was just like us. You see, Israel, in these things, you have to remember, the reason we're studying this, the reason God gave us this, is Israel is a microcosm of who?
Humans.
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 And us, yes, humans. And us. That's right. You got it exactly right. So, what we're studying is what we are like now. Well, this was 2,300 years ago. So it says the people melted in fear and became like water. Now, somebody tell me in my sermon last Sunday, in my sermon last Sunday, what story did I tell you about melting in fear and became like water?
Come on, Betty, bail us out.
Oh my gosh.
No, we're losers.
Deacon. Oh my gosh. Peter!
Yeah.
Peter!
Oh,
Peter was getting out of the boat.
Yeah.
That's
And he
right.
remember, okay, we all remember now. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, of course we do.
We get it
One of the
done.
most famous stories in the Bible. Good for you. So Peter
Walking on
walks
the water
out.
scared him.
I don't expect much from the people on TV, but you know. So Peter walks towards Jesus, remember, and he's looking at him. Remember, he's looking at him. As long as he's looking at him, what happens?
Eye contact.
Walks on the top of the wave.
And it you.
And then when a water laps up over his feet, he gets nervous and he looks away. And what happens?
She sang
And then what does he say?
Save me.
Save me! And Jesus saves him.
Remember that well.
Good. You did. I thought it was just a momentary problem.
It comes
It's
back to us.
the
A
coffee.
senior moment.
It's the coffee that does it. No, it's the coffee. So, but these hearts of the people melted in fear and me. So why did I tell you that little story not to embarrass anybody? I told you that to say, again, we keep on doing it. I do it, you do it, we keep on doing it. We move. What is the great hymn? And don't you say it, you just shut up. Cast your eyes upon Jesus. Look at his wonderful face. Do you remember that song?
Yes.
Well, you're too Episcopalian. You don't remember any good songs. No good songs.
We
in
just
Episcopal.
did it 3 months ago.
Come
Yeah,
on, that's not true.
I know. There are 2 or 3.
Last
Lived
week
high the
we
cross
were
this
too long ago.
Anyway, just kidding. Anyway, no, a little bit. Anyway, remember that hymn. The point is, those hymns are written out of Scripture, but the point is, we keep our eyes on Jesus. What happens? We keep going forward in faith. Why did Peter stop looking at Jesus? He lost his
faith.
yes. Woo! Good for you. This is awesome.
You know, the interesting thing about that whole battle was Joshua saying, "Alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us?"
I hadn't gotten that far yet.
and
But you're right. Joshua tore his clothes and fell face down, it says. And then he says that. Yes, Tom. Let's John.
I was just, this week I read a little passage that kind of grabbed me. You know, we're baptized as babies. That's when our soul becomes
God's.
alive. And then we grow up and we learn about Jesus, and that's when the Spirit appears. I thought that was very grabbing to
It's
me.
an interesting thing.
yeah,
That's interesting. Now, Herman, yes, that's interesting. Herman is talking about Joshua. Now, Joshua, what he quoted, is about the 400th person in these 5 or 6 books of the Bible we've read so far. They said of the Israelites, what have they said? Why did you bring us here? Why did you ever get us out of Egypt? How many times have we heard that?
Yeah.
Why did you take us out of Egypt and make us put us in this mess? You said, and he said, but I told you I would do this and I've done it, but you have not done your part. But nobody ever remembers the part they're supposed to do with Jesus. There's two parts to what's it called?
Covenant.
Who said it? Covenant. That's right. Excellent.
Quick.
Covenant.
Cool.
So the Old Testament is full of covenants, right? And between God and all sorts of people, and between people and people, there's all sorts of covenants. Covenants are another word for?
Promise or contract.
Very good. So he's doing all of this, but the people don't keep their part of the covenant. We don't keep our part of the covenant. That's what happens. It's not anything new. People say, why would God let this happen to me? Haven't you heard that? Why would God let this happen to me?
Oh, yeah.
Heard it this weekend.
And the answer would be, well, you don't say it, of course, I know that. But why would you not keep your covenant with God? I didn't have a covenant with God. Why didn't you have a covenant with God? I mean, take it down the line. Well, I don't have a covenant with God. Do you go to church? No. Do you have a minister? No. Have you heard of God's covenants? No. That's why you don't have a covenant with God. But God's part is out there. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Remember my painting I talk about all the time? I hunt, Holman Hunt. We passed it out a couple of years ago, gave everybody a copy, and it shows Jesus with the lamp, and he's at the door, and the person, and there's light, and what's the trick of the picture?
Jesus can't open the door. You
No
have
doorknob.
No doorknob.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
but
right.
that's the reason. There's no door. The doorknob is on the inside.
Let him in.
You have to let him in. You have to open your heart. It's a great picture. It's one of my all-time favorite pictures. I wish we had it. We had it this big in here. Because that's what happens. We've got people who say, why did God let this happen to me? Well, did you keep your part?
Did it yourself.
There you go. And why is that? Did you keep your part of the covenant?
No.
Did you know there was a covenant?
Mm-mm.
No. Now, I've got to believe that almost everybody in the world's heard the Ten Commandments. I mean, pretty much.
Mhm.
You know that, but nonetheless, unless you go to people, why do I have to go to church? I can go up to the top of the mountain and worship God. Yes, of course you can. But what do you
But
get
you
when you
don't.
come to? What do you get when you come to church? What'd you say?
You don't go
Well,
to the top of the
You
mountain.
don't. That's one thing. In Santa Fe, there's a guy trying to start that. But here, what happens if you don't go to church? What do you not get? This.
Yeah,
So
You don't
Teaching.
get the booster shot,
right.
or in
Every
some
week.
times
Yeah.
you don't get the original inoculation.
That's right. That's right.
People we love, people we love, people we love, family members, friends, people we love, don't even know. And then they say, oh, we got to do this. I mean, I get it. I get why they say it. But I'm just saying, well, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. Okay. Do you go to church? No. Going to church is not a condition to believing in Jesus.
No.
But how do you have a full life with Jesus and receive all the blessings he has for you, including the big one?
Salvation.
Got it, eternal life. That's what we modern people call it, eternal life. Yes. Anyway, think about all this now.
Get up, Betty. You're not ready.
I'm too old
Do
for
I?
this class.
You're doing great. You're a star. I'm gonna give you a silver star one day. I'm gonna make stars and start giving y'all stars. Because every one of you deserves it. But do you see? I'm belaboring this for a reason. We know people we love, regardless of who they are in our lives, and have known people. I'll tell you a story. I read it this morning. So I read devotionals, So now here it comes. Here's the devotional. It's on my phone. I'll try to do the best I can. Many, many years ago, there was a pastor, and he was Baptist, and he had a deacon in his church, and the deacon comes to the pastor. He says, some people moved into next door to me in my neighborhood. And it's a man and his wife, and they have 3 children, and they don't know, they say they're religious, but they don't know Jesus. Will you help me bring them to Christ? That's what Baptists do. They actually bring people to Christ. So he said, yeah, of course. So he goes to his house with the deacon, and they talk, and he goes 2 or 3 times. They never come to church. They never do anything. And then what happens one day? The little boy gets hit on his bicycle, and he's in the hospital, and he's dying. And this nurse, in this devotional, it says a Christian nurse, like that, a Christian nurse calls his pastor, whose number was easy to find, and said, there is a family up here who has a little boy, and he's dying. And they know you and have asked for you. Would you come? He said, I'll come. And he goes in the room, and the little boy is dying. And he tries to talk to the people, and he prays for the little boy, but he prays for the family, and the little boy dies. And the family the next Sunday comes to church. And within just a few weeks, they all come down to the front, and what they call take the pastor's hand and join the church, and forever now were forever devoted to God, devoted to the church. It took this to do it. You know those people, don't you? You know those people who waited, and now, but in this devotion it says, but I always think of that little boy in that Texas grave who went to meet God unprepared. It's a little boy. Think about all the people we know, big and tall, short, fat, whoever have that. So here we are right here. It says, people, the hearts of the people melted in fear and became like water. And then Herman says, and Joshua said, alas, sovereign Lord, why did you ever bring this people across the Jordan to deliver us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us? If only we had been content to stay on the other side of the Jordan. Do you remember me saying earlier that we were done with Egypt? Now we are done with Egypt. Remember I said we're done with Egypt?
Now it's the
Now,
Jordan. Now it's the Jordan.
That's right. You got it. We've moved from that problem to why didn't we just stay on the other side of the river?
Well, they spent a lot of time on the other side.
But before that, it was I am the Lord thy God who delivered thee out of Egypt.
Right.
Now I am the Lord thy God who brought thee into the promised land from Jordan. We heard it, we read it.
Here's people back in 1500 to 1200 BC.
Yeah.
We're still the same.
Yes, I'm trying to say that in a long beat up way.
Bingo.
We
Yeah.
blame everything on something else.
Now, the question is, let's go just a little bit farther, and I'll get to the question is. Let me just give me a minute.
In here, we get the scariest statement in the Bible.
Go ahead.
He says, I think it's in verse 12, I will not be with you anymore.
Unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction.
With the privilege, there's responsibility.
Yes, and there's also God holds you accountable. Then people would say, carry this conversation is important. This is an important conversation to know. People will say, what am I accountable for? I don't even know. And I mean, people who don't go to church, I'm talking about people who don't come to hear, don't learn the word, don't hear the Bible read every Sunday, who don't. He said, but what am I accountable for? I don't even know what I'm accountable for. Well, have you held up your part of the covenant? Have you worshiped God? Because if you did, you would know what you were accountable for, wouldn't you? Because on the first week in the Sunday of the month, Herman will make me do what? Yes, give the
Ten
Declaration.
Commandments.
Herman always makes sure. You know today you're doing that. Okay, then it goes on down. But if you kind of skip something, it says, "Pardon your servant, Lord. What can I say now that the Canaanites and other people of the country will hear about this, and they will surround us and wipe out our name from the earth? What will you do then for your own great name?" Joshua was pretty smart, wasn't he? He was pretty smart. And he flipped it around pretty quick. He said, "Well, what about you, God? If we're gone, who's going to tell your story?"
Moses did that all the time.
All the time. If you let this happen to us, who's going to tell your story? We're the only ones you got. And then he goes down, "Stand up," God says. Lord says to Joshua, "Stand up," with an exclamation point in this Bible. Stand up. What are you doing down on your face? Israel has sinned. They have violated my covenant, which I commanded them to keep. How many times do they hear the covenant in the last book of the Bible we read? Moses' farewell and all of that. Remember that whole book? My gosh, it went on forever. It went over and over and over. I even skipped some of it. It went over so many times. And I'm up here trying to tell it. It says, they have taken some of the devoted things. They have stolen. They have lied. They have put them with their own possession. That is why the Israelites cannot stand against their enemies. They turn their backs and run because they have been made liable to destruction. Made liable to destruction. We are made liable to. So let me. I know we're out of time, but I got to say this part. This is important. Important. We may not get far today, but that's okay. This is important. This is. I can sin. I told you it was going to be important. It said, what did I just say? What did I just quote?
Makers of liable to destruction.
Made liable to destruction. Okay. When we move away from God, we don't do all the things that God, we don't keep our part of the covenant. That's the easiest way to say it. We then fall away and are made liable to destruction. And what does that mean we might do? Commit adultery, steal, lie, cheat, be gluttonous, lazy. Pick it, or just stick with the 10. Stick with the top 10.
Worship idols.
Worship idols. We fall away because we don't keep our part of the covenant, because it says right here, "I will not be with you unless you destroy whatever among you is devoted to destruction." When we fall away from God, we find other things that we devote that are devoted to destruction. And we are what? Destroyed. Is that not right? We're destroyed. Now, I don't mean we're destroyed.
Struck by lightning immediately.
Well, sometimes people are.
Yeah.
That little boy was.
Yeah.
But he was done for the parents and
Right.
other kids. But destroyed. Go consecrate the people. Tell them, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow, for this is with the Lord, the God of Israel. Not the God says there are devoted things among you, Israel. You cannot stand against your enemies until you remove them. And then we'll go to the rest of what he does next Sunday. This is powerful. I hope you think this is powerful stuff now. This is God. This is them making them. They've come to the promised land and they've already made a mess because of one sin. Who's the person who's stolen the stuff? We know now. What's his name? Achan.
Okay.
Achan. It's the one who stole us. He's the one. That's why it's Achan's sin, they call it.
Yeah.
But we're going to get to him. But we're going to get to the process in which he's discovered, which is pretty brutal.
It is brutal.
And we're going to get to that. And he says it's true. We'll talk about it. And then what happens? Then after all that, we're going to learn he's destroyed. All of his people are destroyed. Because God is not very merciful in this case. Because why? To this more, but because why? Because he wants other people to learn. And then the city is destroyed, and then we move on to the other cities. But we've got to get this one right. Okay?